In a small town near Brindisi, Italy, there was a small church where Mass was held every day. Fortunately, the church was supported by a fairly large and dedicated group that gathered almost every day for prayer. At first, there was nothing unusual about this. And yet, there was something strange and unique about this church. One of the visitors who came every day was not a human at all. It was a dog. The four-legged friend sat at the back of the church during the sermon and left after the service. Dogs, of course, were welcome in the church, provided they behaved well. So, the presence of the animal itself was not the most unusual part of the story. However, the fact was that the dog came alone. It seemed to have no owner and came and went of its own free will. No one knew anything about it, not even where it came from or where it went afterward. Nevertheless, it behaved well and caused no disturbance or anxiety. The priest did not seem to mind that the dog lingered at the back during the daily Mass. What struck the priest and the parishioners was how sad the dog looked. It had a sorrowful gaze, and its ears drooped in defeat. Every day, it sat in the same spot, staring at the same place. This began to frighten some of the faithful. Some even began to believe that the dog could see dead people. But the pastor knew dogs. He had owned several in his lifetime. What became increasingly clear was that this poor animal was simply incredibly sad. While a dog of this breed should look strong and healthy with shiny, thick fur, this one looked thin and fragile. It seemed to have no home. It lived on the streets and scavenged for scraps to survive. Perhaps it came to the church for warmth, protection, and companionship. But the priest couldn't help but think that the dog had come to ask for help. But what kind of help? After the sermon, the priest explained his thoughts to some parishioners and asked them to help him bathe and clean the animal. Fortunately, the people agreed and hoped to provide the poor animal with any possible assistance. The dog deserved happiness. So, they slowly approached the dog, which looked at them curiously. It was clear that it was neither aggressive nor fearful. It was simply curious. When they began to bathe it and wash its matted fur for the first time in a long while, it started wagging its tail. The dog looked happy. A small amount of human kindness and interaction clearly made a difference. But while cleaning the dog, the priest made a statement. He had seen this dog before but couldn't quite remember where or when. He racked his brain as the group dried the dog and offered it some food, which it eagerly devoured. The priest decided to put the mystery aside for the moment. At that moment, it was more important to ensure that the dog was happy and healthy before letting it go again. But initially, they thought taking it to a vet would be the best option. There, it would be examined to ensure it was in good physical condition, despite being a stray. To take it there, the vicar used his old leash, which he had used for his own dog. Strangely, the four-legged friend had no trouble putting on the leash and even seemed to enjoy the moment. It obediently walked beside the vicar all the way to the vet. And it made no fuss when it was examined and tested. Fortunately, the results came quickly, and the dog was found to be practically healthy. The vet also checked the animal for a microchip. If it had one, they could find out who its owner was and possibly reunite them. Unfortunately, no microchip was found. It was a dead end. It seemed they would never know who the dog belonged to. As they returned to the church disappointed, a boy came out of a store and noticed the priest and the dog. He ran up to the dog, hugged it tightly, and called it Tommy. The vicar, completely confused, asked why the boy called it that. The boy replied that it was the dog's name, and that he remembered the animal when it belonged to an elderly woman in the area. Suddenly, the priest realized where he had seen the dog before. It had belonged to an elderly woman named Maria. She had passed away a few months ago when old age finally caught up with her. To confirm his theory, he took a small detour and walked with Tommy to the house where Maria had once lived. As if knowing where they were going, Tommy began pulling on the leash and led the priest straight to Maria's old house. It had to be true. Tommy sat down and looked at the house with joy. Now it was empty and abandoned. But it was clear that the dog had a connection to this house. But the priest had to confirm his suspicions once and for all. So, he took the dog back to the church and entered one of the back rooms where he had installed surveillance cameras. The recordings were kept for 6 months. Hopefully, they would include footage from Maria's funeral. Perhaps he would see something that would confirm the story and identify Tommy as Maria's dog once and for all. So, the man began reviewing the footage. He searched for the right time and the right day. And finally, he found it. The secret was now revealed. When Maria's coffin was slowly carried into the church, a dog followed behind. It was Tommy. That day, the pastor had heard little from him because there were too many people present. And he was focused on the sad task he had to perform. The dog took its usual position and gazed longingly at the coffin, as if knowing it would never see its dearest person in the world again. The priest rolled the footage back further and was stunned to see that whenever Maria came to the church for Mass, Tommy accompanied her. He would escort her to her usual seat and then sit at the back of the church, patiently waiting for her to rise. The priest felt his eyes fill with tears. Tommy returned to the same spot every day, hoping to see his beloved again and reunite with her. And the priest's heart broke at such devotion. So, he thought long and hard and came up with a plan to adopt Tommy. He would take care of the dog, provide it with a home, food, and water, and allow it to attend Mass with him every day. And though the priest could never replace Maria, he would do his best to mend the dog's broken heart.